Our hunt begins again.
So this video is going to focus on the final 3 shard bearers of the current early access of V Rising, and that's going to be the Winged Horror, the Behemoth, and Solaris. I'm going to talk through each boss, my strategy involved, the shards themselves, and abilities you'll gain from conquering these 3 malevolent foes. So first up of the first 3 endgame bosses is the Winged Horror. Now as we can see, he flies around the room, does AoE frost, area of effect attacks, can charge by standing still for a moment or two, giving you plenty of time to move. He also does some ground effects, chaos ground effects, that if you get hit by any of them, it will leave a long lasting burning effect on you, which will prevent you from healing or using various different forms in the battle. Now, since this guy seems to prefer using his air assault abilities a lot more, what I would suggest when it comes to this fight is to also play the ranged game. So I would firstly, in preparation for this fight, get a scholar of 100% blood or as close to it as possible. Having this will allow you to gain a lot of free casts on your spells, your ranged spells. Now you can see here, for example, I tried to heal because I'm still learning this fight. This was actually my first attempt while fighting this boss. To get to this boss, you have to unlock your bat form as well, as you can only get here by flying in the first place. So the game will have expected you to have, you know, a lot of gear done by this point. I would realistically wait until you're around gear level 80 before attacking these 3 foes. Now sometimes I'm doing some really questionable attacks, but I'm still surviving quite well against him for my first time. Once again, I'm playing on the fly. Now he doesn't really change too much as the fight continues. Usually bosses have like a phase 2 effect, and although this guy does have an effect, it's nothing too detrimental. Being melee in this fight is quite difficult as he charges, as he likes to do a lot of upfront close assaults. Now you can get to the side of him when he's going to do these barrages of abilities instead of trying to sidestep in and out of them like I try to do when I'm looping around, but I just seem to find this easier. I do prefer being ranged on a lot of these fights where possible, particularly these 3 bosses. It tends to work out best for that. Now once he gets down, have your spells and abilities ready, get a shadow bolt and line it up with 3 back-to-back bolts as well to get you some healing as well from the sanguine coil. These 2 abilities in particular save my ass on so many occasions. Now another thing you could try and get prepared is that you fight these bosses during the blood moon. I just so happened to be fighting this just out of pure luck, if anything, that the blood moon was to appear at that time. Now if you get too close to him, like I do every so often to get in 1 or 2 melee hits, particularly when I use my blood travel skill, it gives me a nice little bit of health back, but at the same time he will try and swipe you away with his tail swipe ability. Outside of that, it realistically is just dodging him, staying far away from him, throwing in those shadow bolts and blood bolts from the sanguine coil, and also using the scythe as well, using that E ability on the site, because he does stand around a lot, particularly when he's about to do his casts. So press E when you see him doing his casts and you will get a lot of easy damage thanks to that ability. Now I finally got him down. It takes a couple of minutes. Expect 4 to 5 minutes on this fight. Now the big thing, most likely you're going to get your first shard. I do recommend this guy as your first of the 3 as well. He is without a doubt the easiest of the 3. Now this soul shard will prevent you from teleporting, going into wolf form, riding on horses, or using any teleportation, unfortunately. So what you need to do is get ready to run back no matter where these bosses are situated and try not to die. along the way. Now, if you're on a PvP server, this will be a lot harder, but I'm doing solo in this context. Now, you will gain an ultimate ability, your second ultimate ability in the Frost Tree, which will deal a large amount of damage over 6 seconds, and it pulls enemies into the center of it as well, so it's great for crowd control. Along with this, it will chill all the enemies, and if you do combine it with another Frost ability, you'll be then able to freeze enemies as well. Upon successfully returning the Soul Shard to your base, you're going to get 50 fire and silver resistance, which is fantastic for lots of those enemies, such as those archers that do a lot of fire damage. And then of course, if you want to pick up silver from the silver mine or trade those silver coins for cosmetic helmet effects, then you'll also be able to do that. Along with this, since I do love using my spells a lot, particularly in these bosses, it's going to increase our spell power by 10 and give us a critical strike rating of an additional 5%. Now, next up we have the Behemoth, easily the boss I had the biggest trouble with. He does a lot of heavy physical damage. He does move quite slowly, but he always tries to decrease that distance between yourself with multiple charges. So many in fact that it is hard to dodge all of them. You could use the Chaos Travel ability to get 2 dodges. I also changed to have the crossbow here as well because I did want to stay ranged as much as possible, because anytime you get close to him, he might have the ability to either charge at you in close proximity or try stun you by bashing down multiple times, which can be quite lethal as time moves on. To also help decrease the range between you and him, he will jump into the air, so you will at times get caught in it if you do not have the travel ability for the chaos. Now, once he gets a little bit on the lower side of health, he's going to transition into multiple phase 2s. Now, as we can see on the screen here, he's going to call a bear and a wolf. Now, these bears and wolves are the exact same as creatures you find outside. What I would try and do, if possible, is try and target down that wolf anytime he comes close, because that bear you can easily kite around the place. I'm using the Q ability of the arrows when both are in close proximity when possible, and then of course for the boss I'm switching between the odd ranged attack here and there along with the E button as well. Just anytime I can get in an additional hit, I'll be doing that, along with lining up my very trusty Shadow Bolt and my Sanguine Coil. Now, as you can see here as well, is I got hit by the boss and got stunned. Now, this is an alternative to his phase 2. You could say this is his ultimate ability. In fact, the ability that you get as a result of winning this fight is a little bit similar. Now, if this was the only thing the fight had to offer, it would be quite simple. This is the difficult part here. This is when he will summon a second version of himself. Now, if you can use the ultimate ability for blood, where you channel a lovely beam through each of those bosses, it will almost decimate that second boss that will come out. Now, this spirit version of the boss will respawn again after a set amount of time. Taking him out simply just gets him out of the fight for maybe about 20 or so seconds to give yourself some peace. But this second spirit will mimic a lot of the abilities the boss will do. So sometimes you might need to get a little bit lucky that they don't do the same thing at the same time. So this can come down to be a very hectic finish to the fight. It is extremely well done. Now, the spirit doesn't have that much health, but he is very, very deadly, and this is the part of the fight I constantly kept dying to. Figuring out using the ultimate ability of the blood and just lining myself up with that beam right through them was the make or break point of the fight. Now, one of the rewards for finishing this boss is getting an ability similar to what we saw during the fight, which is a wisp ability. We summon 3 wisps which will circle around us. Now, if we repress this button, they will fire out each wisp and do additional damage and also weaken the target. So you can either use these as a shield and slowly hit people and do damage to them, or fire them out. And they also reset and can be recasted very quickly on demand. Now, for successfully bringing the soul shard of the Behemoth back to your base and constructing it, you'll get Garlic and Holy Resistance by 50. Now, the Holy Resistance will be extremely useful for the last boss because his attacks are generally holy abilities. Also, he has Holy Radiance surrounding his area, so this is almost an essential part to get before you go for the last boss. Along with this, you'll also get a little bit of a movement speed increase and also extra resources every time you go out to mine or farm different resource nodes. Now here I made sure to have 140 resistance to holy damage, which negates the entire holy radiation that you would get throughout the fight, and you'll also get up to 70% reduction on his holy abilities. Solaris is the last final boss, the final hurdle, the 37th boss of the current early access of V Rising. Now this fight is very, very interesting, but it is not particularly that difficult actually, considering if you have already managed to beat the Behemoth, which you undoubtedly have before this fight. In fact, due to the fact of the soul shard of the Behemoth granting such a gigantic resistance to holy damage, makes this fight much more bearable. Along with this, you should prepare by having a holy resistance potion also at hand to make sure that you counteract his effects even more so, and making sure that the holy radiation isn't going to be an issue. Having any extra buffs such as 100% of a blood ability, just like the previous bosses, even potentially fighting him at Blood Moon stage, all these little differences will add up. Now, once again, like most bosses, I choose to stay at a ranged distance, particularly because of the amount of abilities he can do to stun you, to knock you away, or just do major damage in close proximity. Now, as you can see, he's going to keep charging. If you stay in front of him or stay slightly to the side of him, he will miss you completely with that ability once he charges. Now, with the ability where he plunges a sword into the ground and you have all these amazing lighting effects, all you have to do is just get ready to dodge. You'd be more than accustomed to doing this at this stage. His ultimate ability sees him going into the middle of the room and having once again lots of dodgeable light holy abilities just surrounding the room. Once again, just keep doing the same thing as always. With the scythe, I prefer to use that again with this fight, just because he does like to stop and cast a lot. Particularly, I tried to use this when he finishes charging, so he stands still for a few seconds. Now, if you stay in front of him, he will try and hit you with this kind of pinwheel ability, which then splits out. Now, this will become more annoying as time goes on. As he gets lower in health, he starts to create even more of these. Now, along with this, he's going to create the ultimate mechanic for this fight, and that's the Divine Angel. Now, at the start, you might think, oh, I can just resist this Divine Angel, it's not going to do anything. However, once Solaris gets low enough, typically around 20 or so percent, he'll run into the middle of the room and shield himself, making him impervious to all damage. Now, at this point, he will start to heal himself slowly, which means you have no choice but to fight off the Divine Angel. Now, if you can manipulate the fight just enough, fighting both of them at the same time to bring this angel down as low as you can, down to maybe about 30 or so percent, then you can easily kill it off, so Solaris will heal himself very little, maybe 50% of his health maximum, because he does gain a large chunk the moment he runs into the middle of the room and shields himself. Now, the reason why this Divine Angel is so important is not just because it's an additional add to kill, and he does lots of the same abilities Solaris does, such as the lightning moves. He also does some lunges in front of you, but once you bring the angel down and killed off the angel, he'll actually be converted into an unholy angel, and fallen angel, which is very fitting for this encounter. The only way to break through that shield is have the angel transform into this fallen angel, and he will throw an unholy bolt against the shield, which will actually break the shield and stop the heal and begin the rest of the fight. Now, while Solaris is in his shield, you'll see light effects just being spread throughout the room. It's just tried to cause a distraction, just to try to hurt you more, just so the angel is not so simple on his own, because when both of them are out, they are very, very, very deadly. Now, the angel will take a lot of the aggro from Solaris at this point as well, so he will spend a lot of time trying to hit him, which can be annoying for you as well, just due to the fact that sometimes the angel may turn him into a direction that can be quite difficult for you to dodge some abilities. Now, the point of this phase is to try and get down the boss as quick as possible before your angel dies, because the angel is giving you a lot of extra damage and of course is distracting the boss as much as possible. Now, we can see, because the angel likes to aggro the boss and keep him far away from you, we'll try and remove that distance ultimately by charging and flying into the air and crashing down on you. Now, with the angel out of the way, of course, it does make the fight a lot more manageable just to focus on him at once. So just try your best to keep on doing as much damage as possible. Now, I have also had an attempt. This was my third attempt of the fight, where I was still learning a lot of the abilities myself. But what you could do and what you shouldn't do is that if you try to bring down the angel and even kill it before Solaris goes into his ultimate ability and heal himself with the bubble, the angel will literally do the same thing. So the angel has a little safety mechanism that if you try and reduce him down too low before Solaris activates his ability, he will actually go into a shield and heal up. So it's pointless bringing the angel down and trying to kill him, or bringing him too low. So try and keep the angel maybe about 30 or so percent before Solaris runs into the middle of the room. This would reduce the fight length drastically, but just try and stay focused and soon this boss will go down. I managed to get this boss down on my third go. It wasn't as clean as I would like it to be, because I was still learning the mechanic regarding that fallen angel, because I didn't understand it until I'd done it 3 times. So get this done, you'll finish your final quest, and you'll be rewarded just like the other bosses with a new ability and also a soul shard for your troubles, which you will need to bring back to your base so far away. So best of luck with the run, and congratulations, hero! Or should I say, congratulations, vampire. You have destroyed every single foe you have faced thus far. Successfully killing Solaris allows you to summon that exact same fallen angel which assisted you during the fight. So with this angel, you will be able to summon it for 15 seconds. It will get the aggro of nearly every enemy that's currently fighting you. And every attack that the angel lands on the enemy will give it an extra 25% damage taken through an amplified debuff. So let's watch this in action. Now, the more opponents on the screen at the same time, the more chaotic the angel will be, so the less, the better in general. And finally, successfully returning the soul shard of Solaris back to your castle will allow you to get 50 extra resistance from the sun, and also on top of that will grant melee attack speed by 5% and physical attack power. So combined, all 3 shards can create a very powerful buff on a 2-hour timer, which will need to be reset every single time you die, or once those 2 hours elapse. Just simply go back to your castle, reapply those buffs, and enjoy. And that's it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed today's video of V Rising and the soul shards and the final 3 bosses of the current early access. Hopefully a lot more from this game in the future. And until next time, in case I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Jamie out. Take care.